Lihana stared at the wall of glowing screens in front of her. Numbers and symbols flowed across the displays like digital rain. Each line of code represented another camera, another sensor, another way the Terran Regulation Syndicate watched. The people living on orbital habitat Kepler-7. The coffee in her cup had gone cold hours ago. Hana pushed her black hair behind her ear and rubbed her tired eyes. It was almost midnight on the habitat, but the TRS security center never slept. Neither did the surveillance systems she helped maintain. "Another quiet night in paradise," muttered Officer Park Jinwoo from the workstation next to hers. He was scrolling through camera feeds from the residential sectors. Families eating dinner, children playing in the corridors, old people sitting alone in their small rooms. All of them being watched. Hana nodded but said nothing. She had learned to keep her thoughts to herself during her 3 years working for TRS cybersecurity. Her job was to monitor the data flows. That connected Kepler-7 to the other orbital habitats. She was supposed to look for threats to the system. What she had found instead were threats from the system. A new alert flashed on her primary screen. Unusual data patterns in Sector 7G. Hana frowned and pulled up the analysis tools. Someone had been probing the security network in that area. The probes were subtle, but they left tiny traces in the data logs. Her fingers moved quickly across the keyboard. The probe patterns looked familiar. Over the past few months, she had noticed similar activities in different sectors. Always careful, always just below the detection threshold of the automated systems. But Hana had been tracking them manually. She opened a hidden partition on her personal drive. Inside were files she definitely should not have. Network maps showing the weak points in TRS surveillance. Lists of security protocols that could be bypassed. Communication logs that revealed how the TRS really controlled the orbital habitats. The truth was simple and ugly. The TRS claimed to protect humanity from alien threats and space pirates. But there were no alien threats. The space pirates were mostly desperate refugees fleeing TRS taxation. The real purpose of the orbital defense network was to keep humans trapped in their assigned habitats, working for the benefit of Earth's ruling class. Hana had discovered this truth 6 months ago when she accidentally accessed classified files during a routine maintenance task. The shock had nearly made her report the security breach immediately, but something had stopped her. Maybe it was the memory of her parents, who had died in the mining riots on Kepler-3 when she was 15. The riots, the TRS claimed, were caused by alien infiltrators. The riots that were actually caused by workers demanding fair wages. Now she was doing something that would get her executed if caught. She was mapping every weakness in the TRS network, not just on Kepler-7, but across all 12 major orbital habitats. The work had taken months of careful preparation. She had to be perfect. One mistake would mean death for her and anyone connected to her. Another alert appeared on her screen. This one made her heart race. A TRS security sweep was beginning in Sector 12F. Automated drones were already moving through the corridors, scanning for unauthorized gatherings and illegal communications equipment. Hana knew what was in Sector 12F. 3 weeks ago, Kim Taemin had mentioned that some of the maintenance workers were organizing meetings in the old storage areas. Taemin was her oldest friend, the only person from her childhood who still talked to her after she joined the TRS. He worked in the habitat's lower levels, fixing air recyclers and water processors. He also passed messages between workers who were tired of TRS control. The security sweep would find those workers. The automated systems would identify them as dissidents. Within hours, they would disappear into TRS detention centers. Their families would be told they had been transferred to other habitats. The truth was that most people who entered TRS detention never came out. Hana's hands hovered over her keyboard. What she was about to do would save lives. It would also mark her as a traitor to the system she had sworn to serve. She began typing. Her access codes got her into the security sweep control system. The automated drones were following programmed. Search patterns based on algorithms she helped maintain. She could not stop the sweep without raising alarms, but she could redirect it. Her fingers flew across the keys. She inserted new coordinates into the drone navigation system. Instead of searching the storage areas where the workers met, the drones would search empty corridors on the opposite side of the sector. She covered her tracks by making the change look like a routine calibration update. 20 minutes later, the security sweep completed its mission. The drones reported finding nothing suspicious in Sector 12F. The workers who had been meeting in the storage areas had no idea how close they had come to discovery. Hana had saved them without them ever knowing she existed. But her actions left digital traces. Small ones, carefully hidden, but traces nonetheless. Commander Yang Junho was the head of TRS security on Kepler 7, and he was known for his attention to detail. If he decided to investigate the security sweep, he might notice the inconsistencies. Yang was different from most TRS officers. He had earned his position through competence rather than political connections. He actually cared about protecting people, even if he was wrong about who the real threats were. Hana had watched him work for 3 years. He was methodical, patient, and very good at finding patterns in data. The thought of Yang investigating her work should have terrified Hana. Instead, she felt something she had not experienced in months: hope. For the first time since discovering the truth about the TRS, she had done something to fight back. She had used her position to protect innocent people instead of helping to oppress them. The revolution had begun with a single keystroke in a darkened control room. Hana did not know it yet, but across the habitat, other people were making similar choices. Workers like Taemin were organizing in secret. Former soldiers like Park Nari were building networks of resistance. Even some TRS personnel were beginning to question the system they served. The ghost in the network was no longer just watching, it was starting to act, and that changed everything. Kim Taemin waited in the shadows of Maintenance Tunnel C7, listening for footsteps. The air recycling systems hummed around him, covering the sound of his nervous breathing. In his toolkit bag were 3 data chips and a small medical scanner. All of them were highly illegal to possess without proper authorization. 20 minutes past their meeting time, he finally heard the soft tap-tap-pause-tap signal on the tunnel wall. Taemin responded with 2 quick taps and waited. The access panel slid open and Lee Hana climbed down from the main corridor above. "You are late," Taemin whispered as she dropped beside him in the narrow tunnel. "Security sweep in Sector 12F kept everyone busy," Hana replied. She looked tired and worried. "Did anyone follow you down here?" "No. I checked 3 times." Taemin studied his childhood friend. They had grown up together in the worker housing blocks before Hana got selected for advanced education. That was 12 years ago. Now she wore the blue uniform of TRS technical staff, while he still had the gray coveralls of a maintenance worker. "The people you helped yesterday want to meet you," Taemin said quietly. Hana shook her head. "Too dangerous. I cannot risk direct contact. They know someone in the system helped them. They want to say thank you." "I did not do it for thanks," Hana said. "I did it because it was right." Taemin smiled. This was the Hana he remembered from their youth, the girl who shared her food with hungry children, the teenager who stood up to bullies even when they were bigger than her. Somewhere during her years working for the TRS, he had worried that person was gone forever. "There is someone you need to meet," Taemin said. "Someone who can explain what is really happening on the other habitats." He led her through a maze of maintenance tunnels she had never seen before. The route took them deep into the habitat's infrastructure level, past water processors and air scrubbers that kept 30,000 people alive. Taemin moved with the confidence of someone who knew every pipe and cable in the system. They stopped at what looked like a dead end. Taemin pressed his hand against a section of wall that seemed identical to all the others. A hidden panel slid aside, revealing a narrow passage. "Where does this go?" Hana asked. Sector 15J. The abandoned storage area. Taman saw her confused expression. Officially, there is no Sector 15J. It was sealed off after a containment leak 5 years ago. The TRS removed it from all the habitat maps. They crawled through the passage for 10 minutes before emerging into a large room filled with old equipment and supply containers. Battery-powered lights hung from cables attached to the ceiling. About 20 people sat on makeshift chairs and boxes, talking quietly in small groups. A woman in her 40s approached them. She had short black hair and the straight posture of someone with military training. Her left arm ended at the wrist, replaced by a simple mechanical hand. "You must be Hana," the woman said. "I am Park Nari." Hana recognized the name immediately. Park Nari had been a decorated TRS Marine officer until 3 years ago when she disappeared during a mission to the Titan mining colonies. Official records listed her as killed in action. "You are supposed to be dead," Hana said. "The TRS would prefer that," Nari replied. "It is easier than explaining why a loyal officer turned against them." Nari led Hana to a quiet corner where they could talk without being overheard. Taemin followed but kept watch for anyone who might be approaching their hidden meeting place. "What happened on Titan?" Hana asked. Nari's expression darkened. "We were sent to stop a worker uprising at the mining facility. Command told us the miners had been infected by alien parasites that made them violent and irrational. Our orders were to use any force necessary to restore control." She paused and flexed her mechanical fingers. "When we arrived, I saw the truth. There were no aliens, no parasites, just people who were tired of working 16-hour shifts for starvation wages while the TRS shipped their minerals back to Earth. They wanted basic medical care for their children and safer working conditions in the mines." "What did you do?" Hana asked. "I refused to fire on civilians. My own squad tried to arrest me for mutiny. In the fighting, I lost my hand and barely escaped." Nari looked around the hidden room. "I have been organizing resistance ever since." Iswara pulled out a small data pad and showed Hana a map of human space. 12 orbital habitats orbited different stars, connected by trade routes and communication networks, all controlled by the TRS. "The situation is the same everywhere," Nari explained. "The habitats and mining colonies produce resources that get shipped to Earth. In return, Earth sends manufactured goods at prices the colonies cannot afford. The TRS claims this system protects humanity from external threats, but the only threat is the TRS itself." Hana studied the map. "How many people know the truth?" "More every day. But knowing is not enough. We need action." Nari activated another display on her datapad. This one showed technical diagrams that made Hana's heart race. They were schematics of the TRS orbital defense network, the same network she worked on every day. "We have been planning something for months," Nari said. "A coordinated operation across all 12 habitats. We want to broadcast the truth to every human settlement simultaneously. Show everyone the evidence of what the TRS has been doing. That would require breaking into the central communication systems," Hana said. "The security is impossible to bypass." "Not impossible, just very difficult." Nari looked directly at her. "We need someone with deep access to the network, someone the system trusts." Hana understood immediately. They wanted her to hack the TRS from the inside, to use her position and access codes to break through defenses that had been designed to stop exactly this kind of attack. "If I did this and got caught, they would execute me," Hana said. "If we do nothing, millions of people will continue to live as slaves," Nari replied. "The choice is yours." Taemin moved closer to them. "There is something else you should know. Commander Yang has been asking questions about the security sweep yesterday. He thinks someone inside the system helped the workers avoid detection." Chill ran down Hana's spine. Yang was methodical and patient. If he suspected her, he would investigate until he found proof. "How long do I have?" she asked. "Maybe a week before he connects the evidence to you," Taemin said. maybe less. Hana looked around the room at the faces of people who had risked everything to resist the TRS. Workers like Taman who smuggled supplies to hidden communities. Former soldiers like Nari who had chosen conscience over duty. Ordinary people who refused to accept that oppression was the price of safety. "Tell me about this plan," she said quietly. Nari smiled for the first time since they had met. "Welcome to the revolution." For the next 2 hours, they explained their strategy. It was ambitious, dangerous, and probably impossible. It would require precise timing, perfect coordination, and enormous courage from everyone involved. It was also the best chance humanity had ever had to break free from the system that kept them divided and controlled. As Hana climbed back through the maintenance tunnels toward her apartment, she knew her old life was over. Tomorrow she would return to her workstation in the TRS security center. But now she would be working for a different cause. The ghost in the network was about to become something much more dangerous. Hana sat at her workstation, pretending to run routine diagnostics, while her real work happened in hidden memory partitions. For 3 days, she had been planting small code modules throughout the TRS network. Each piece was tiny and harmless, by itself. Together, they would become a weapon capable of bringing down the entire surveillance system. The work required incredible patience. She could only insert 1 or 2 modules per day without triggering the automated security scanners. Each insertion had to look like normal maintenance activity, a system update here, a diagnostic routine there, small changes that would never be noticed individually. Her fingers trembled slightly as she typed the commands for the 7th module. This one would disable the emergency lockdown protocols for the habitat's communication arrays. If the TRS tried to cut off outside contact during the revolution, this module would keep the channels open. "Working late again," said a voice behind her. Hana nearly jumped out of her chair. Commander Yang Junho stood behind her workstation, studying the displays over her shoulder. His expression was calm, but his eyes were alert. He had the look of a predator that had caught an interesting scent. "The quantum relay diagnostics take time to complete properly," Hana said, trying to keep her voice steady. "I want to make sure everything is running efficiently." Yang nodded and moved to look at her secondary screens. "You have been very dedicated lately, working extra hours, running additional security checks. Your performance reports are excellent. Thank you, sir." "I have been reviewing the security sweep data from 3 days ago," Yang continued. "There were some unusual patterns in the drone navigation logs, minor discrepancies in the search routes." Hana's heart pounded, but she kept typing. "The navigation system sometimes needs calibration updates. I have been monitoring it for efficiency issues." "Yes, I saw your calibration report." Yang leaned closer to her main screen. "Very thorough work, almost like you knew exactly what needed to be adjusted." The conversation felt like a chess game, where Hana could not see all the pieces on the board. Yang was too smart to make direct accusations without solid proof, but he was definitely suspicious. "Is there a problem with my work?" Hana asked. "Not at all. Keep up the good work." Yang walked away, but Hana could feel his eyes on her for several more minutes. She forced herself to complete the diagnostic routines before leaving for the day. In the corridor outside the security center, she spotted Choi Minho from the programming department. He was young, maybe 22, with nervous energy that made him fidget constantly. He had been watching her workstation area more often lately. Minho caught her eye and looked away quickly. Either he was interested in her personally, or he had noticed something unusual about her recent activities. Hana hoped it was the first option, but her instincts told her it was the second. That evening, she met Taman in a different maintenance tunnel. The Resistance had learned to change meeting locations frequently to avoid detection patterns. "Yang is getting suspicious," she told him immediately. "And I think one of the programmers might have noticed something." Taman's face went pale. "Should we call off the operation?" "Not yet, but we need to move faster than planned." She explained what modules she had successfully planted and which ones still needed to be inserted. The original timeline called for 2 more weeks of preparation. Now they might have only days. Nari wants to meet tomorrow, Taman said. There have been developments on the other habitats. The next night, Hana returned to the hidden room in Sector 15J. The group had grown larger. She counted 30 people, now including several she recognized as TRS personnel. The resistance was spreading even within the system itself. Nari looked grim as she showed Hana new intelligence reports. Kepler 9 had a work stoppage yesterday. The TRS response was swift and brutal. 50 workers were arrested and shipped to detention facilities on Earth. Their families were told they volunteered for dangerous mining work on the frontier. The room fell silent. Everyone knew what that meant. The detained workers would never return. We also have good news, Nari continued. Our contacts on Kepler 4 and Kepler 11 are ready to begin their operations. The resistance networks on those habitats have grown larger than we expected. She activated a holographic display showing the 12 orbital habitats. Green lights marked the ones where resistance cells were prepared for action. Yellow lights showed habitats where preparations were still ongoing. Red lights indicated habitats where the TRS had discovered and crushed resistance activities. 8 green lights, 2 yellow, 2 red. We have enough support to proceed, Nari said, but only if we can coordinate the timing perfectly. Hana studied the display. The communication delays between habitats make coordination difficult. We need real-time, synchronization across light years of space. That is why we need control of the quantum communication network, Nari replied. Your access to the central systems is the key to everything. An older man named Bae Sungjin raised his hand. He worked in the Habitat's supply depot and had been helping smuggle equipment to the resistance. What about the people who are not part of the resistance? When the fighting starts, they could get hurt. It was a good question that had been bothering Hana as well. Most of the 30,000 people on Kepler 7 had no idea what was being planned. They would wake up one morning to find their world had changed completely. We have evacuation plans for the residential sectors, Nari said, but some risk is unavoidable. The TRS will not give up power peacefully. How many people might die? Asked a young woman Hana did not recognize. Fewer than will die if we do nothing, Nari replied firmly. The TRS system kills people slowly, through overwork, poor medical care, and despair. We are trying to save everyone, not just ourselves. The meeting continued past midnight as they refined plans for the operation. Hana's role was crucial but dangerous. She would need to access the central control systems during the busiest part of the day shift, when security attention was focused on routine operations. As the group prepared to leave, Bae Sungjin approached Hana privately. Are you sure this will work? Nothing is certain, Hana admitted, but doing nothing guarantees that nothing will change. Sungjin nodded and disappeared into the maintenance tunnels. Hana did not know it then, but that would be the last time she saw him as a free man. The next morning, she returned to her workstation with new determination. Yang watched her more closely now, but she had work to finish. 3 more code modules needed to be planted before the operation could begin. She had become a ghost in the machine, invisible but deadly. Soon the entire TRS network would learn. What happened when humans decided they had endured enough? The emergency alert reached Hana at 0600 hours while she was drinking coffee in her apartment. The message was brief and terrifying. Bae Sungjin had been arrested during a routine supply inspection. His transport shuttle had been searched, and security officers found illegal communication equipment hidden in medical supply containers. Hana's hands shook as she read the report on her personal data pad. Sungjin was being held in the high-security detention center on Level 2. The report did not mention interrogation, but everyone knew what happened to suspected dissidents in TRS custody. She dressed quickly and hurried to work, trying to appear normal while her mind raced through the implications. Seung-jin knew about the resistance network. He knew about the planned operation. Under interrogation, he might reveal everything. At the security center, Commander Yang was already deep in conversation with other officers. They were reviewing surveillance footage and scanning reports from the supply depot. The investigation was expanding rapidly. "Ah, Hana," Yang said when he noticed her arrival. "Perfect timing. We need a complete analysis of all communication traffic from Sector 8K for the past month. Bae Sung-jin worked in that area, and we want to know who he might have been in contact with." Hana's stomach dropped. Sector 8K included the maintenance tunnels, where she had met with Taemin multiple times. If Yang found those meeting records, both of them would be arrested within hours. "I will begin the analysis immediately," she said, sitting at her workstation. As she worked, Hana's mind was split between two tasks. Officially, she was searching for evidence of Seung-jin's contacts and activities. Secretly, she was trying to erase or alter any data that might implicate the resistance network. The problem was that Yang was watching her work closely. Every query she made, every file she accessed was being monitored and recorded. She could not delete evidence without leaving traces of the deletion. By midday, the investigation had expanded to include searches of maintenance areas and worker housing blocks. Security teams were conducting random interviews with depot employees, and anyone who had regular contact with Seung-jin Taemin was questioned for 2 hours about his work schedules and movement patterns. He was released without charges, but Hana could see the fear in his eyes when he sent her a coded message through the internal communications system. The message was simple. "Family dinner canceled. Uncle is sick." It meant the resistance network was compromised. The operation had to be suspended or abandoned. That evening, Hana found a way to slip away from her apartment without triggering surveillance alerts. She used maintenance access codes to reach the hidden meeting room in Sector 15J. Only 8 people were there, much fewer than usual. Nari looked exhausted and angry. Seung-jin broke after 6 hours of interrogation. He told them about this meeting place, about the supply routes, and about some of the people involved. "We barely evacuated in time." "What did he tell them about me?" Hana asked. "Nothing specific. He knew you were helping, but not your name or position. But Yang is smart. He will make connections eventually." Taemin was pacing near the back wall. "We should call off the operation and scatter. Try again in a few months when things calm down." "There will not be another chance," Nari said firmly. "The TRS is implementing new security measures across all habitats. In a few weeks, this kind of gathering will be impossible." She activated a portable display showing reports from other habitats. The news was mixed. Kepler 4 and Kepler 11 were ready to proceed, but their operations depended on coordination with Kepler 7. If they acted alone, the TRS would crush them before they could spread their message. "We proceed tomorrow," Nari announced. "It is our only chance." "Tomorrow," Hana said in shock. "I need at least 3 more days to plant the remaining code modules. Then you will have to improvise. Use the modules you have already placed and find another way to access the central systems." The weight of responsibility fell on Hana like a crushing load. The success or failure of the entire operation now depended on her ability to hack through TRS defenses with incomplete preparation and hostile surveillance. "There is something else," she said quietly. "I discovered something in the network architecture yesterday. The orbital defense system is not just for surveillance and communication. It is connected to automated weapons platforms." The room fell silent. Everyone understood the implication. If the TRS activated those weapons during the revolution, they could devastate the habitats from space. "How many weapons?" Nari asked. "Enough to kill everyone on a habitat in minutes?" Hana replied. "The official records say they are for defense against alien attack, but the targeting systems are designed to hit specific locations on the habitats themselves." Taemin stopped pacing. "You mean they can destroy us if we rebel? Or threaten to destroy us to keep everyone obedient?" Nari said grimly. Either way, we have to disable those weapons before we begin the operation. Hana felt the impossible task getting even more difficult. She would have to hack the surveillance network, the communication systems, and the orbital weapons platforms, simultaneously, all while avoiding detection by Commander Yang and his investigation team. I will need help, she said. Someone on the inside who can distract security while I work. What kind of help? Nari asked. Someone in the programming department, someone who can create system alerts that require immediate attention from the security staff. Nari frowned. Do you have anyone in mind? Maybe. There is a programmer named Choi Minho who has been watching my work. I think he might have figured out that something unusual is happening. If I approach him carefully, he might be willing to help. It was a desperate gamble. If Minho reported her approach to Yang, the operation would be over, and Hana would be arrested immediately, but without inside help, the mission was probably impossible anyway. Make contact with him tomorrow morning, Nari decided. If he refuses to help, we abort and try to escape the habitat before Yang closes his investigation. As the meeting broke up, Hana realized she was crossing a line she could never step back over. Tomorrow, she would either help liberate humanity from TRS control, or she would die trying. There were no other options left. She spent the night reviewing her planted code modules and planning how to access the central systems with incomplete preparation. The math was brutal. She would have maybe 30 minutes to break through multiple layers of security, disable orbital weapons, and broadcast revolution messages across 12 habitats. 30 minutes to change the fate of humanity. When morning came, she dressed in her TRS uniform for what might be the last time. The revolution would begin in 12 hours, ready or not. At 0800 hours, Hana approached Choi Minho at the programming department coffee station. Her heart hammered against her ribs as she tried to appear casual. Good morning, Minho, she said, pouring herself coffee she did not want. Oh, hello, Hana. Minho looked nervous, glancing around to see who might be watching them. How is the network analysis going? Complex as always. She lowered her voice. I noticed you have been reviewing some of the same system logs I work with. Are you seeing anything unusual? Minho's eyes widened slightly. This was the moment that would determine everything. Either he would report her question to security, or he would admit that he knew something was wrong with the TRS systems. I have seen some code fragments that do not belong in the standard protocols, he said quietly. Small routines that seem designed to bypass security checks. What do you think they are for? Hana asked. I think someone is planning something that the TRS would not approve of. Minho met her eyes directly. I think that someone might be trying to help people who deserve help. Relief flooded through Hana. If someone was planning something like that, would you help them? My parents died in the Kepler-5 mining accident 2 years ago, Minho said. The official report blamed equipment failure, but I know the truth. The TRS refused to approve safety upgrades because they were too expensive. 300 people died to save money. He paused, then continued more quietly. So yes, I would help. Hana explained what she needed. At exactly 1400 hours, Minho would trigger a series of system alerts that would require immediate attention from the security staff. The alerts would be fake, but convincing enough to pull Yang and his officers away from their monitoring stations. How long do you need? Minho asked. 30 minutes, maybe less if everything goes perfectly. And if it does not go perfectly, then we both get executed for treason. Minho nodded grimly. I understand. They separated and returned to their workstations. Hana spent the morning hours reviewing her attack plan one final time. The code modules she had planted over the past week would activate in sequence, each one disabling a different layer of TRS security. The timing had to be perfect. At 1330 hours, she received a coded message from Taman. The resistance fighters were in position. The evacuation teams were ready. The broadcast equipment was prepared. Everything depended on her ability to crack the central systems. At 13:55 hours, Commander Yang walked past her workstation for the third time in an hour. His suspicion was reaching critical levels. If she waited much longer, he would probably arrest her on general principles. At exactly 1400 hours, alarms began sounding throughout the security center. Multiple systems were reporting critical errors that required immediate investigation. Yang and 4 other officers rushed to the emergency response stations. Hannah activated her first code module. The module targeted the automated surveillance scanners, creating blind spots in the network monitoring. For the next few minutes, her activities would be invisible to the central security systems. She activated the second module. This one disabled the communication lockdown protocols. Even if Yang realized what was happening, he would not be able to cut off contact with the other habitats. The third module went live. Emergency backup systems went offline across the habitat. If the TRS tried to regain control through alternate channels, they would find those channels blocked. Now came the dangerous part. The remaining modules could only be activated from the central control systems, which required administrator access. Codes. Hannah had been mapping the authentication routines for weeks, but she had never actually tried to break through them. She began typing commands faster than she had ever typed before. Each keystroke brought her closer to either victory or death. The first authentication barrier fell after 2 minutes of intensive code breaking. The second barrier took 4 minutes. By the time she reached the third barrier, Yang was starting to notice that the emergency alerts might not be genuine. "Minho," Yang called across the security center, "are you seeing unusual activity in the programming logs?" "Just the standard diagnostic routines," Minho replied, but Hannah could hear the strain in his voice. The third authentication barrier cracked. Hannah was now inside the central control systems with full administrator access. She activated the fourth module, which began broadcasting revolution messages to all 12 habitats simultaneously. Across human space, people stopped their daily activities to stare at screens showing evidence of TRS crimes, mining accidents that were actually murder, worker uprisings that were crushed with illegal weapons, families separated and shipped to different habitats to prevent organized resistance. The truth spread like wildfire through the communication networks. Hannah activated the fifth module. The orbital weapons platforms went offline one by one. The automated systems that could have destroyed entire habitats were now harmless chunks of metal floating in space. She activated the sixth module. Every TRS surveillance camera in human space began broadcasting the resistance message instead of monitoring the population. The eyes of the oppressor had become the voice of the oppressed. "Security breach!" Yang shouted as he realized what was happening. "Someone is attacking the central systems from inside the network." He spun around and looked directly at Hannah. Even across the crowded security center, she could see the moment when all the pieces fell into place in his mind. Hannah activated the seventh and final module. Every screen in every habitat began showing the same message. Coordinates for resistance gathering points, instructions for peaceful assembly, demands for democratic elections and local self-government. The revolution had begun. Yang was running toward her workstation now, his hand on his sidearm. Other security officers were following him. Hannah had maybe 10 seconds before they reached her. She used those seconds to transmit one final message to every screen in human space. "We are not criminals or terrorists. We are your neighbors and family members who refuse to accept that freedom is impossible. Join us. Help us build something better. The choice is yours." Yang's hand closed on her shoulder just as the message finished transmitting. "Lee Hannah, you are under arrest for treason against the Terran Regulation Syndicate." She looked up at him and smiled. "The syndicate is finished, Commander. Look around you." Yang glanced at the screens surrounding them. Every display showed the same image. Thousands of people streaming out of their apartments and workplaces, gathering in the main corridors of their habitats. The revolution was spreading faster than anyone had expected. "You do not know what you have started. Yang said. Yes, I do, Hana replied. I have started the end of your system. Across 12 habitats, the neural flare of human consciousness was awakening. The age of oppression was ending. The age of freedom was about to begin. 6 months after the revolution, Hana stood in what used to be Commander Yang's office, looking out at the construction crews rebuilding the habitat's central plaza. The old TRS security barriers had been torn down and replaced with open gathering, spaces where people could meet and discuss their future freely. The transition had not been easy. In the first weeks after the neural flare, chaos had threatened to tear the habitats apart. Some TRS officers had tried to maintain control through violence. Some resistance groups had sought revenge against their former oppressors. Food distribution had broken down when the centralized supply systems collapsed. But humanity had surprised itself. Instead of descending into endless conflict, most people had chosen cooperation over chaos. Within days of the revolution, elected councils had formed. In every major section of every habitat, workers had organized voluntary shifts to keep essential systems running. Former enemies had worked together to prevent disasters. The agricultural section reports are ready for your review, said Kim Taemin as he entered the office carrying a data pad. Hana smiled at her old friend. Taemin now served as the coordinator for infrastructure maintenance across Kepler 7. His years of experience keeping the habitat systems running had made him invaluable during the transition period. How are the food production levels? She asked, accepting the data pad. Better than expected. Removing the TRS export quotas means we can actually feed everyone properly now. The workers are motivated when they know the food they grow will feed their own families instead of being shipped to Earth. That was one of the biggest changes since the revolution. Each habitat now kept most of what it produced, trading only, surplus goods, with other settlements. The result had been an immediate improvement in living standards for ordinary people. Any word from the other habitats? Hana asked. Kepler 4 completed their democratic elections yesterday. They chose a council, system similar to ours. Kepler 11 is still debating whether to have direct democracy or representative government, but they seem to be working it out peacefully. Not all the news had been good. 2 habitats had experienced civil wars when TRS loyalists tried to maintain control. Kepler 8 was still struggling with food shortages after their agricultural systems were damaged during the fighting. But overall, the transition to freedom had been less violent than anyone had feared. A knock on the office door interrupted their conversation. Park Nari entered, followed by a man Hana recognized but had never expected to see as a visitor. Commander Yang Junho looked older than he had 6 months ago. The stress of watching his world collapse had added gray to his hair and lines around his eyes, but his posture was still straight, and his gaze was still alert. "Hello, Hana," he said quietly. "Commander?" She gestured to a chair. "Please sit down." The first months after the revolution had been difficult for former TRS personnel. Some had been arrested for war crimes. Others had fled to Earth or the remaining TRS-controlled settlements. Yang had chosen a different path. Instead of running or fighting, he had offered his knowledge and skills to help with the transition. The security protocols for the new communication network are ready for testing, Yang said, handing her a data pad. We have designed them to prevent surveillance abuse while still protecting against genuine external threats. That had been Yang's contribution to the new order. His understanding of security systems and his genuine desire to protect people had made him valuable even to those who had once considered him an enemy. It helped that he had refused orders to bombard civilian areas during the final days of the revolution. "What about the Earth response?" Nari asked. Yang's expression darkened. "The TRS is building a new fleet. They claim it is for exploration and trade, but the ship designs are clearly military. They have not given up on reclaiming control of the habitats." This was the shadow that hung over their new freedom. Earth still had superior resources and technology. If the TRS decided to retake the orbital habitats by force, the newly independent settlements would struggle to defend themselves. How long before they are ready to attack? Hana asked. At least 2 years, possibly 3. But they will not wait much longer than that. Every month of independence makes us stronger and them relatively weaker. Hana walked to the window and looked out at the people moving freely through the plaza below. Children played games in areas that had once been restricted security zones. Adults gathered in discussion groups that would have been illegal under TRS rule. Artists had covered the walls with murals celebrating human creativity and freedom. "We cannot win a military conflict with Earth," she said. "But we do not have to." She turned back to face the others. "The revolution did not succeed because we had better weapons. It succeeded because we had a better message. People chose freedom over security, cooperation over control." "Earth's population is still under TRS control," Nari pointed out. "They do not have access to the truth like we do now." "Then we give them access," Hana said. "The same way we liberated the orbital habitats." She activated the office's holographic display showing a map of the solar system. Earth glowed blue at the center, surrounded by the orbital habitats and mining colonies that had declared independence. "The TRS communication networks on Earth use the same basic architecture as the systems we hacked," she continued. "If we can establish contact with resistance groups on Earth, we can help them broadcast the truth to their populations." Yang leaned forward. "That would require getting past Earth's orbital defense systems. They have been upgraded significantly since the revolution." "Every system has weaknesses," Hana replied. "We just need to find them." 6 months later, the plan began to take shape. Using captured TRS equipment and knowledge provided by defectors like Yang, the habitats began developing their own advanced communication technology. Instead of building weapons to fight Earth's military superiority, they built tools to fight Earth's information monopoly. The second revolution began with a single transmission that broke through Earth's communication barriers. Within hours, the message had spread to every connected device on the planet. The people of Earth learned the same truths that had liberated the orbital habitats. They saw evidence of TRS crimes. They heard stories of successful democratic governments. In space, they realized that freedom was possible. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Work stoppages began in major cities. TRS facilities were surrounded by peaceful protesters demanding democratic reforms. Military units began refusing orders to fire on civilians. Within 6 weeks, the TRS government had collapsed. Within 6 months, Earth had established its own democratic councils and begun negotiating peaceful relationships with the independent habitats. Hana watched these developments from the same office window where her journey had begun. The view had changed completely. Where once she had seen surveillance cameras and security barriers, now she saw open spaces filled with free people. "Do you ever regret it?" Taman asked, joining her at the window. "Regret what?" "Starting all this." "The revolution, the chaos, the uncertainty." Hana considered the question. The past year had been the most difficult and dangerous of her life. She had risked everything, lost sleep over impossible decisions, and taken responsibility for the fate of millions of people. "No," she said finally. "I regret that it took so long to begin." Outside the window, children who had never known TRS oppression played games their parents could never have imagined. Adults debated policy questions in public forums that would have been impossible under the old system. Artists and scientists pursued projects based on human curiosity rather than TRS priorities. The neural flare that had begun as a technical hack had become something much larger. It had awakened human consciousness to its own potential for freedom, creativity, and cooperation. The age of authoritarian control was ending. The age of human possibility was just beginning. As the sun set over Kepler-7's artificial horizon, Hana smiled and began planning humanity's next great adventure. The revolution was over. The future had just begun.